A lot of people think theology is just for pastors, seminary professors, or that one guy in your Bible study who somehow brings up Calvinism in every conversation. But what if I told you you already have a theology and it's affecting your life right now, whether you realize it or not? Because every human ever is a theologian. This one, maybe not this one. Have you seen him play? It's otherworldly. But a theologian is really just someone who has ideas about God. And so even an atheist is a theologian. By thinking God doesn't exist, is still thinking about God. So whether you are 5 or you're 55, you think thoughts about God, and they're ideas that shape how we think and how we live. So let's break down 5 massive reasons why theology actually matters in your daily life and how it changes the way you work, make decisions, and even how you handle stress. So what comes to your mind when you think about God? Is he a distant rule maker? Is he a cosmic vending machine? Or is he a loving father? Because our answer to this question, it's not just theoretical, but it shapes how we live. I was a really young young college pastor, 22, way too young to be a college pastor. And I was leading a Bible study in one of the kids' classrooms at church. I don't know why it's always in like kids' classrooms. I'm like super nervous though, right? I'm like trying to set up the chairs. You know it's bad when like you're trying to make sure they're like equally all set apart. And so I've got it all set up and people start rolling in, they show up, and this class was about God's attributes. And so I'm explaining all of God's attributes, and I get to the idea that God is omnipotent and God is omniscient, which means he's all powerful, he's all knowing. And all of a sudden this older gentleman begins to cry, which as a young pastor, I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? This old dude's crying now. And by the way, this old guy was a rocket scientist. And so he's crying and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so after the Bible study's over, I go over to him and I'm like, I noticed you were tearing up, you were crying. What's going on? And he said, I am 84 years old. I've done a lot of things in my career, but I never realized that because God is all knowing and because God is all powerful, that even my small prayers matter to him. That's why theology matters. Because if we think God is distant, then we're going to struggle to pray. We think God is distant, then we're not going to think he's near our pain or our sorrow. If we think God is just about rules, then everything's going to be based on our worth and our performance. And if we think God is all love and no justice, then we might not take sin seriously. Because what you believe about God, it changes how you relate to him, how you see yourself, and how you treat others. When life gets hard, your theology shows up quick. And bad theology always leads to bad coping. Because if I believe God always wants me to be happy at all times, then when I suffer, I won't have a framework and I won't know what to do with it. But if I know that even in my suffering and pain, God is still good, he's still at work, he's still growing me in my sanctification, in my spiritual journey, that there's some kind of purpose in there, then I have the staying force to stay the course. But when I don't have a good theology, then I don't have framework for when life is challenging, life is hard, and life is difficult. Spoiler alert, you're always worshiping something. If it's money, you're going to feel like you never have enough. If it's approval, you're going to get crushed by criticism. If it's comfort, you're never going to kind of step outside and stretch yourself. When I was a college pastor, we had our services on Friday night. I'd get to the church, make sure everything was set up, and I'd go into the room. Funny enough, it was actually the same room we converted from the story earlier. And every Friday night, we'd go 7 to 8:30 roughly service. And at the end of service, my joy, my happiness was contingent on whether a lot of people showed up. Like I would be depressed in the weekend because I felt like I failed as a pastor if there wasn't a good crowd for the service. And that's a frustrating way to live. And it's because my priorities of what I was worshiping was out of sync. Rather than God being ultimate no matter what, I was so concerned with my own validation of trying to be a good pastor that it was crushing. Because we're always worshiping something. And what your theology does is it tells you what's ultimate, and that affects every part of your life. Hey, what you doing? Watching hockey. Oh, I thought we were watching baseball. Oh, the hockey game's already on. Can we turn it on? Well, I don't want to go in a different room. That's too bad. I was here first. Just go to a different room. So what you and I believe about grace, it doesn't just affect our relationship with God, it affects every single relationship we have. Because if I believe God's love is earned, I'm going to struggle to show grace to others. But if I believe that salvation is a free gift, that God pours his grace upon me, I'm going to extend grace more freely. And the Christian faith, it's all about grace. And it's all about the grace that is found in the gospel. In our faith, we don't move beyond the cross. What we do is move into a deeper understanding of God's incredible love, grace, and mercy for us. Because our theology, it doesn't just change how we see God, it inevitably will change how we see other people. If life is about getting a job, finding a better job, making money, and dying, that's pretty depressing. However, when you realize God created you for more, it changes everything. In the Garden of Eden, the original intent was that Adam and Eve were given the cultural mandate from God. They were to go out and create culture. They were to go and spread the beauty, the wonder, the innovation of Eden to the rest of the world. Well, that cultural mandate hasn't changed. It's still here. And the work you do matters. While God does not want you to find all of your meaning in work, he does want your work to be meaningful, to be fulfilling. And that's not just for pastors and missionaries and teachers, but whatever space you're in, whether you are an architect or an accountant or a carpenter, you have the opportunity to push forward God's kingdom work in that space, to create work that is meaningful, that is fulfilling, that gives people dignity. And when we do that, when we have this switch, suddenly work is not just about a paycheck and eventually retiring, but work is about the space that I fulfill God's mission for my life. So there you have it. Whether we realize it or not, theology shapes our life every single day.